what adaptations do. Hi, I am your host Kage with my co-hosts
Neff.
And Buttons.
and today we are talking about Fallout. But not just Fallout. We're talking about Last of Us also. But let's speak on Fallout because that is the new and hottest thing lately. So first and foremost, I want to be honest and upfront. I'm both a fan of the games, and when I heard about this series, I kind of assumed it was gonna bomb. Okay, because video game adaptations generally don't do that great. Over the years, they have gotten better. Most notably, we had the Mortal Kombat film. I'd say that was a pretty good adaptation. Was it the best? Debatable, but it's pretty good. And then we had the Last of Us, which is also based on a video game, and that did amazing. It was already approved for a second season, so we will be getting that sometime down the road. But let's talk about Fallout. Fallout came out recently. Much to my delight and surprise, Amazon Prime released the entire season all in one go. So I thought that was very cool. At the end of the week, it had only been out for a week. At the end of the week, it was announced that it was approved for a second season, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty legit. But just to kind of give a little synopsis here, Fallout is a gigantic story that spans multiple games. Myself personally, I've played Fallout 3, a little bit of New Vegas, and 4, and of course there's the online game Fallout 76. So needless to say, they have a lot to draw from in order to make a show. Now you got it takes place in how do I explain this? It's like 1950s but futuristic. There's fusion powered cars. It's
I think the idea
1950s futuristic. I don't know quite how to word it.
I guess if you were to make a direct comparison, there was a lot of books, movies, TV shows that came out in the 50s and 60s that kind of showed America basically advancing super fast, but still had that Leave It to Beaver or
Right. So
that 50s nostalgic feel of housewives and the good old American value system and things like that.
White picket fences and everybody's your neighbor and everybody's smiling.
And but like I was saying, you had a lot of that. Oh yeah, we're gonna rapidly advance now that we have the nuclear power. Like now we have this thing. We're gonna have robots and flying cars and rapid medical advancements and things like that. And this kind of takes that idea that was popular during that time and says, what happened? What would it be like if that really did happen? Like if all of a sudden we were just like, boom, we have all this technology rapidly advanced, but wasn't over decades. It was like boom, just all of a sudden overnight we had all this technology. And what it does because they did this in other games too, like BioShock, where you have the same kind of situation where it's like, hey, isn't it comical to see this world that's completely been destroyed basically by humanity, warfare and stupidity, but the survivors are still finding remnants of past culture, of past
of the world before.
Yeah, of the world before. And that's kind of what Fallout to me is like, because again, that's kind of like what BioShock is. And it's done in a very funny way.
Yes.
It's very humorous. It's in that respect. And no, I have not played the games. But I do know people who have told me about the games and what they're like, and I do know the general gist of what the story is and the premise of all that. And I did watch Fallout series, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's kind of the way that it works as far as, you know, at least, Kage, I think that's kind of what you're trying to say is like, this is a world where it's futuristic, but it's not futuristic. It's
Yeah, it's basically an alternate history of.
Man in the High Castle. It's very similar to Man in the High Castle, where
Okay.
it's based in the 50s, after the war, and if the war had gone the other way, like if things
Yeah,
had
yeah.
happened
Well,
differently.
this is like an alternate history of World War II because they do mention okay, it's fallout. It's a story about nuclear fallout and what
Right.
happens after, and the show opens up with probably one of the best opening sequences I've ever seen on a show. Just showing the world before everybody's happy, smiling. They make it very aware that there is a war going on and nuclear threat is in the
Right.
air. It's on the news, and they're trying to hide. They're just trying to shove it down, put it in the background. Let's just not focus about that right now because it's a kids' party. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to kind of be like the Cold War.
Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to be very hokey, and it's like I think it's like China versus the U.S. or whatever. And so now there's Vaultec, the company that's making money off this of building vaults around the country.
Fallout
and-
shelters.
Fallout shelters, exactly. And it's like, oh, you want to survive the horrors of nuclear devastation? Well, do we got a deal for you?
Well-
We have these underground vaults that allow you to live comfortably. We have all your amenities or whatever. We have school, we have agriculture, whatever. We have everything you
Yeah.
need.
It's
Just
for the
come,
rich people.
and it's kind of for the rich people and stuff.
But
at
they
least,
market it as this is going to be for the survival of the human race.
Right.
Should the worst happen, you and your loved ones are going to be protected in the
Right.
vault.
Okay.
And to your point, I think during the 60s when you had the Cold War going on and you had the huge communist movement even within the states, the United States, you had that fear of like what would happen if a nuclear bomb was dropped on the US, if Russia finally said, you know what, that's it, we're doing this. And that's kind of what this is like,
Right.
well, somebody pushed the button.
and I'm glad you bring that up because that is exactly what the show does. It talks about, it alludes to, but you don't actually know who started the war, how it all started. The show kind of alludes to that in a little bit, but it doesn't factually say
It just says,
this is
"Oh,
this is
crap,
what it
this
is.
is happening."
This is what happened. There is this is happening in the
Right.
very first episode.
Yeah, exactly. That intro.
Yeah, but like for all the doom and gloom of horror of nuclear war, this isn't a serious
No, it's a
thing
very
at all.
comical.
It's very comical. Rad roaches, radioactive roaches, two-headed Brahmin cows, and like people are just trying to survive. It's very much post-apocalyptic, but heavy on comedy, heavy on violence. Definitely not for kids, but still a lot
and
of
all
fun.
that.
Right. And we got to talk about this. They did a fantastic job with season 1 overall. Speaking just as a fan of sci-fi and as a fan of the game, I think they did it justice. I think they did a fantastic job. I would almost argue, and I might get some hate from some gamers out there, but I have to say this. I almost feel like it's better than The Last of Us. Okay? And here's why. So, The Last of Us game is a 10 out of 10 in my book. The story was fantastic, post apocalyptic. A fungus takes over, and it's a real fungus, by the way, folks. The cordyceps fungus that infects insects, okay? And the whole concept of Last of Us is, what if it jumped to humans? Okay? So you had this game, and it's a single-player game that has a definitive beginning and a definitive end, and it follows these characters, Joel and Ellie, at their adventure across the U.S., with the goal of finding a cure, I guess. And I don't want to give too much away on that, but it's a really, really great show. Really dark, really violent. It is not like Fallout, where Fallout is silly and everything.
And lighthearted, yeah.
Lighthearted. There's not a lot of happy in Last of Us, but it's a fantastic drama, and so the show follows the game of Last of Us pretty closely. It does change some stuff. It does expound upon some things, but I think it wasn't. I think it was perfect. I think it wasn't going so far off the rails where you're like shaking their head like, wait a minute, like if they turned Ellie into a boy or something like that. You know what I mean? So the liberties that they took. Speaking as a fan, I was okay with, but kind of going back to my original point, I feel like the Fallout series is better than Last of Us simply because it doesn't follow any set
It's not a
story.
direct story.
Right. But it takes place in that universe and it follows the rules in that universe. And so that gives you the freedom to kind of you can do whatever you want as long as
you can pick a good story and make it work within
Exactly,
the universe.
because the Fallout games are 300 plus hour games, whereas Last of Us is like 20 to 30 hour game. And because Fallout is so massive, there's so many stories, side quest stories within stories that you can go on, or you can easily make your own story and it would work as long as you abide by the rules set in that universe. And so because they have more freedom to do that, that's what makes it better. Because Last of Us, as speaking as a fan, I'm very critical. I'm going to go, I know where they're
That's not how
supposed to
that
go.
character-
I know how this happens. I know
Yeah.
what happens to this character. I know who dies, who lives, what happens. So like, you have to stick with that because if you don't, you're going to piss off a lot of people.
Right.
But Fallout, you have so much freedom. You can do whatever you want. As long as you abide by the rules set forth in the Fallout universe, you're gravy. Okay? But
They did change some things
They did.
because, for example, this was my boyfriend. He'd played the games, so he was familiar already with, like you were saying, the rules and things that happen that are explained about certain characters or types of characters, I guess you could say.
Yes.
For example, the ghouls. They introduced certain rules and things that they were describing why the ghouls behave the way they are and different things like that. And he's like, that's not how they are in the games. So, and what I'm talking to specifically is, because I don't feel like this really gives too much away about the TV show for those of you who haven't seen it. They have like these little vials of medicine that was developed that's supposed to slow the progression, because in the show they basically, ghouls were people and they slowly become skeletons to where they can't move anymore basically, and they go crazy. That's kind of the way the show describes the ghouls, is that they're out there functioning, they have their own memories, they have their own, similar things that happen to them in life, they remember all those things, and then over time they degrade and kind of go crazy and feral.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say about that though is that in the games, ghouls do exist. They're people that were exposed to more
High
radiation
amounts,
than
high amounts of
than
radiation.
normal, because radiation's everywhere. You're constantly aware of it. Every bit of water, food you drink, anything you hunt, you're gonna get some radiation.
Right.
That's just that universe. But everybody, they have a thing called Radaway and Rad-X to get rid of the side effects of radiation.
Right, yeah.
Radiation poisoning. But in terms of the ghouls, though, they don't really talk about the vials in the game.
Well,
I think
and that's-
that's
and
I
I
think
think that
that's
was-
something exclusive to the show.
Exactly.
Me personally, I was okay with it because I feel like in a game, there's things that gamers just kind of roll with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
here's a
Because they
ghoul.
have because they have ghouls that you can talk to, like you and me, and then they have the feral ones that there's no
Right.
reasoning, there's no
Right. And
humanity
that's-
left in them, and they are gonna come and
try
bite
and
you.
kill you. Yeah. And And that was kind of, like I said, that was kind of what he was confused with when they introduced those vials and how
Yeah.
the ghouls interact, because he's like, that was not in the game.
Yeah,
So it
I
was
feel
nothing.
like they had to make something just for TV audiences
Well,
to explain why we have feral and why we have normal.
Well, that, and I think it did drive a little bit of the story with Lucy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
her interaction.
Yeah.
So in the TV show, the show focuses mainly on Lucy, or Goosey, depending on who, what you want to call her. But her character, and this is where that comedy angle kind of comes into play, because as Kage mentioned, they have the fallout shelters where, a select few individuals that, either paid for or worked for Vault Tech or were determined like to be high, scientists or whatever, and they wanted to protect the science base, to maintain the vaults and make progress still while they're underground waiting for the radiation to clear up. Those people were who they had down in the vaults. Now, I won't give too much away about the vault dynamic in general, because that is a main driving point of the story. But Lucy is somebody who was underground in one of these vaults, and basically the main driving factor of this story is she has to come above ground, out to the real world, and find her father.
Yeah.
And she's lived her entire life in this vault, and they are very structured, very rigid, and at a very society-based kind of, like you said, like it's stuck in the 50s or 60s in terms of how they treat each other and how they behave, their mannerisms, because they're stuck in a
Time capsule.
a time capsule, exactly.
Yeah.
And in a little bubble where it's like, you have to get along, otherwise it won't work. Like, everybody will, become discontent and, rebel
Yeah.
and all that. So they're like, we have these strict rules, everybody follows and, behaves in certain ways in order to make the vault successful for the survival. Because they're like, hey, this is what they start pushing to the kids when they're young in the
Yep.
vault, in these vaults, is like, hey, we're here to help humanity survive. So this is what we have to do. This is our history, and this is, we all have to work together.
We are born in the vault. We die in the vault.
Right.
And that's all they know. And it's interesting to point out. It's not really that big of a spoiler, but they allude to the fact that right in the get-go, they tell you there are so many vaults, hundreds of
Right.
vaults around the country.
Yeah, they were building them all over.
And what they tell you is that, oh, we're trying to save humanity, we're trying to have a future for humanity, when in reality, the vaults are experiments.
Well,
That's
some of them.
Some of them are experiments. Some of them are really weird. And in the case of
Some of them are more like Control, where they're just like there.
yeah, we're just messing with people, but they don't know because they're brought up. This is all they know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a indoctrination, if you will. They
do explain a little bit more in the series about what's going on with that. So
yeah,
again, I don't want to, for anybody who's played the games, you're already going to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Like, so you're already going to know more about the vaults, because the games expound even more than the TV show even did. But for me, I never played the games, so I'm just going to say, as far as, coming in and having never played the games, I only knew the gist of the games in general, which is there was nuclear fallout. You have these people who are surviving on the surface, and they have their, creatures and, things that they have to fight against. And then there's other humans
Yep.
that they're fighting against, because there's like, ones that are cannibals and thieves. And,
yeah. There's different
heavy
there's different
radiated
factions and
yeah,
stuff like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
So
'Cause-
you're, and it's very similar to, Borderlands, in the sense of, you get these quests, these little adventures that drive you all across the place. And to your point, where you have to like work with these other factions, like, hey, you need to go hang out with this group, and
Yeah.
or, oh, if you side with this group, you're gonna have these perks, or
Right.
it's gonna make you less, or it's going to provoke attacks from this other group
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And so it's got the dynamic of you being able to manipulate how your character is able to interact with the world around you. And in the show, Lucy's character, she's coming from a vault. She has no idea. So it's almost as if she's a player.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's a very good
you're
comparison.
learning what it's like to be out on the surface, and she's like, I have no idea how to interact. She is, she's like,
Very naive.
golden rule, remember the golden rule. And, at the same time, like this guy comes up to her and asks her for water, and she's like, oh, sure. She doesn't think anything of it. And he drinks her
All of
entire
it.
thing of water, and he's like, well, that's the saying, is you come across water, you drink it. And she's just like, she's like, oh, actually,
I needed that. Yeah, no, you described Fallout pretty perfectly right there. It's post-apocalyptic, and there's a very light undertone of like horror aspect, the horror of war, the horror of nuclear devastation. But
Beast
it's
attacks,
beast
animal
attacks,
attacks.
but there's just a lot of comedy. Even the idea of you drank all my water, they made that funny.
Right.
You know what I mean? I thought that was really good. But just the fact that both of these stories of Fallout and Last of Us, even if you haven't played the games, it's just really solid storytelling. I highly recommend anybody out there, I don't care if you're a gamer or not, give these shows a chance. I promise you won't be disappointed. Last of Us is definitely more of a drama, it's more serious, whereas Fallout, there's a lot of comedy. Both are very violent. Both follow their respective games pretty well. I would say Fallout has more freedom just because it's so massive. And I love the comparison you made, Buttons, about she kind of takes the point of view of the player of you come out of the vault, you don't, all you know is what's in here. You know everyone,
Yeah.
because you grew up with them, and just like in the game, you leave the vault, you're on a quest to go find something, and that leads you down the road of hundreds of adventures. You meet factions, and you start off with your rules, your golden rules, as it were, knowing what to do, and you realize, oh wow, the world does not play by those rules at all. You will kill somebody for a bottle of pure water if you can find it, or you will drink irradiated water out of a toilet because
that's
all you have. Exactly. And
And then you drink some rat away.
yeah, exactly. And then you're gonna kill a giant mutated cockroach because food.
Yeah.
But that has radiation in it, and like everything's
Dog meat.
oversized. Dog meat? No, we don't eat dog meat. That is the one line they do not cross. I think that would suddenly make it darker. Dogs are the goodest of boys, and they are treated as such.
Yeah.
But I think I want to talk about adaptations. So, like I said, video game adaptations historically have a bad rap. I feel like it's only recently that things are starting to get better. I think Hollywood industries out there are starting to see that video games do have good stories that deserve to be told, be given that silver screen treatment, as it were. We had Mortal Kombat come out. It didn't knock it out of the park. It was definitely pretty solid. It was rated R. It's important, I think, for such a game to have that.
I want to bring up a question
Sure.
to the group because, I will say this because I went to the mall recently.
Okay.
And you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute.
Okay.
But I went to the mall recently, and when I was a kid, the mall was a very different place than the mall that I went to recently.
Agreed.
In the sense of, they had like maybe one or two little shops like Spencer's and Hot Topic that were kind of the oddballs. Everything else was very Macy's, JCPenney's,
Sure.
Abercrombie and Fitch and American Eagle and Old Navy and Forever 21. Those Claire's, those kind of stores that were very mainstream, modern, nothing really odd about them. Nothing really hyper focused on games or movies, TV shows, that kind of stuff. And recently I went to the mall and it was, hey, here's a Dungeons and Dragons store.
Yeah, yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
A video game store. Here's an arcade. Here's another one that caters specifically to some little niche. And what I would, I guess, characterize it as, and don't get me wrong, because I loved it, because I was like, I never could find stuff like this when I was younger. If I was looking for some
Oh yeah,
niche,
these places
if I was looking
definitely
for some
didn't exist
niche
back
little
then.
thing, it was like I had to drive way across town to find something. But I will say, it felt like when I went to the mall, there was tons of niche little things all over the place. Almost like malls realized that in order to get people into the mall, they had to adapt to the people who were going to the mall. Back in when I was a kid, it was everybody went to the mall, and it was almost like catered towards all the popular kids.
It was a place to be. It
sports
wasn't just a
and
place to
clothing
shop. It was a
and-
place to be seen.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So
and-
yeah, when you're you
and
see
you weren't-
teenagers
and you
and
didn't
everything.
see a bunch of the nerds or
Sure.
geeks or anything like that, because there wasn't a whole lot to bring them in. They were like underground, like we had to go to
Yeah.
some guy, shop way across town to find our Dungeons and Dragons stuff, or we had to go, all the way to a specialty store to get this one T-shirt that referenced Pulp Fiction or whatever. It was a lot harder to come by those things. Whereas now it feels like it's almost catering in the opposite, and it's going for the niche things, Etsy's and your
Yeah.
3D printed, this, that, and that, and
Mm-hmm.
and your kind of niche kitschy little movie memorabilia, or action figures, or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's seeping into the mainstream.
It's
And
becoming-
that
the
is
niche thing is
yes.
now popular.
Exactly. Now it's, how many action figures do you have?
So-
did you collect all the anime? There was like 3 different anime stores in the mall.
Yes, I know
It was like
exactly what you're
anime
talking
movies,
about.
Anime posters, anime, used, DVDs or whatever. But it was way more like,
Before it was more synonymous with
negative.
not so much
Like a negative.
It wasn't-
not necessarily. It was more synonymous with I'd say anime, not gaming.
Well, like anime-
It was like Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Like there used to be a store in the
Naruto.
mall. They would sell Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. Like
Right.
they used to be a
Yeah.
thing. Now it's like
But it was like
now
one
the
store in
gaming
the mall.
It'd only be
It
like
was
one.
one,
It'd be
and
like
they would,
one.
and they
Yeah.
would not
Now you
just
are right.
be-
There's like 4 or 5 now.
Well, like this
And it wouldn't
is
just be Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It would also be baseball cards and
Yeah.
and trading cards. And
this is
everything else.
But now it's stuff specific for these things.
Exactly.
well, this is fantastic to bring up, you guys, because gaming culture has definitely become more mainstream. Back in the '90s, gaming was said to have been done by kids, and it was a very small niche group.
But now
Whereas
those
now,
kids are adults.
but now we're adults and we're taking over. But like now, gaming, anime, it's starting to become more widely accepted, and not just. And by the way, too, it was thought that in the early '90s it was predominantly little boys and stuff. Now we have girls gaming, girls watching anime. It's
Well,
definitely.
I'm sure you still had it, but it's more widely not just accepted, but also
Yeah.
like Neff said, it's popular.
Yeah, it's
Did you see the last Demon Slayer? Yeah, I saw the last.
Yeah,
Demon
yeah,
Slayer.
exactly.
Did what about that other movie? Like you said, how many, back in the day, like the most we had was like you said, Pokemon cards. So it was like, we'll play and trade Pokemon cards,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that was our thing. But that's probably where you have a very good solid launching off point of saying like, that's where things started
Mm-hmm. Well, this
to
is-
change, where it became acceptable for girls to be involved too.
Right.
And, otherwise it's like, boys do cards and stuff and girls do dolls and Barbies, like that.
there's there's anime geek culture, whatever you want to call it. You have Comic-Con. I think this definitely bleeds into that as well. This geek culture, as it were, it's really becoming more widely accepted, and that's why we're starting to see more movies, more shows dip their toes in that so
And
to
give
speak.
it, like you said, give it a solid budget and a solid.
Yeah,
you
and
know.
because back in the day, back in the '90s, it was like only kids do it. So we're gonna make a Street Fighter movie, a Mortal Kombat movie in '93,
Power
'94,
Rangers.
Power Rangers, and this one is for the kids. Whereas now we're making adult video games and video game shows like Last of Us and Fallout. These are not for your kids. These are very adult, very mature stories, but they're also very edgy, very funny in Fallout's case. And I think that this is really opening the door. You know, I look forward to seeing what the next 10 years brings in terms of entertainment in the movie and film industry for shows. Hopefully, we get more big budget things like this. I think the reason why these two shows are doing so well is because, unlike not to rustle any feathers, but like okay, we had the recent Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender, casting, special effects, storytelling, everything was great, plucked right out of the show. I watched the entire show with my little brother many years ago. I liked it so much I went out and bought it on Blu-ray. I own it now. But those shows were so good just because of solid storytelling, and now we got these two shows. They're just doing absolutely incredible. Review wise, I mean, heck, after 1 week of being out, they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're doing a season 2," and I was like, "Okay."
And just to for Neff, I know you have not played the games or watched the shows, but as far as it as an audience member, if we were to tell you you had two options, because Kage brought up a good point, which is that The Last of Us is directly a story from the game, whereas Fallout is its own standalone thing set within the universe, follows the same rules and has the same interaction with different peoples and things like that. Like they still have the Republic of California
Yeah.
in there, even though the way that they set it in the timeline for the game. And just as a side note, this show is set after, at least after 3.
Yeah,
And maybe
I
even after 4. So it's as far as like in the timeline of the games comparison, because I was talking to my boyfriend about it, because he was sitting there going like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
And they explain, in particular, the Republic of California in the TV show as far as how it differs from the games to make the story work.
Yeah.
But the question for you, Neff, is would you rather watch a show that, like, you and the audience are not going to have any idea what the story is, so you don't go into it thinking, oh, I know this character's supposed to be like this, or oh, I know the storyline is going to go like this and this is what's going to happen at the end? Or would you want a story where you have no idea, you're going into it, you don't know what's going to happen, you want to see maybe those Easter eggs, because there was a ton of Easter eggs.
Oh, God, yes.
In Fallout, but like you want to see those
I
Easter
think
eggs
it
to
goes
where you
both ways.
tie.
I think it goes both ways. Maybe if I had no knowledge of these games existing, then it would be kind of different, and then you're blind. Whereas I feel like if you played the games, when you watch the show, it's more enjoyable because you notice certain things.
Right.
So I don't know how I'd look at it. Like with this type of stuff, like I'd probably want to play the video game because it'd make it more enjoyable to watch on TV as live action.
But
Like if they made a Metal Gear Solid like show, I'd probably be way more engaged because I've played Metal Gear Solid.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
but that's my point. Is would you want the story of the show to
I would
be
definitely
the game?
I would want the story of Metal Gear Solid, like the game. I would want it to be the show. If they did like
Okay.
another spin on
Okay.
Metal Gear Solid, I'd be like, Hideo Kojima didn't write this. Like this is not Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, and
because when you say Metal Gear Solid, it revolves around Snake. Like
Okay, and
the
that's what I'm
boss
saying. Is
and-
would you want the story to be
Yeah, it would need to
the
do that.
story from the game,
Yeah, it would
or
have
would
to
you
do that.
want it to
Well-
be like what Fallout did, which is it's in the universe of Fallout, and if you've played the games, there's going to be the elements
Now,
that you're
this
going to
is the
recognize,
difference.
but you're not going to know how it ends
Right.
because
So this
it's
is
different.
this is the thing. This is the difference with Metal Gear as well, because the game kind of switches between main characters for a second. So with Fallout, it's not that it's, from what it sounds like, these people don't really exist in the game. This is Fallout world, but
Right.
these characters are like not
Right, they
in the game
introduce new
technically.
characters.
Right.
But what I was thinking of with Metal Gear Solid, you have Snake, right? And so you have Solid Snake and you have Liquid Snake, right? But Liquid Snake is really the antagonist. This is his twin brother. They're cloned from Big Boss, right? And so you have the Shadow Moses incident, and then later on, Snake kind of comes back, right? This starts Sons of Liberty story, right? So he gets on this tanker. He's trying to get more information on the new Metal Gear Ray, where this thing is at. He ends up disappearing, and it's said that he dies, right? And so then Raiden comes in, whole new character to the whole
Yep.
series, and then it kind of shows his trajectory through the story. So I could see that happening as well. It's still Metal Gear Solid, but now you switch focus from Snake to another character that you're bringing in, rather than you just make
Creating
up
a new
somebody
character.
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, this is Metal Gear Solid."
Yeah.
It's like, that's not Metal Gear Solid. You can call it something else, but
Yeah.
But
But
with
so
this
you're-
Fallout, it seems like Fallout has found an interesting way to not follow lore, but then keep aspects of lore. 'Cause these characters don't exist.
There are some
Well,
differences, like Buttons pointed
different-
out.
The different games, my understanding is you're not playing the same character.
No.
So in that sense, because
They are
because
not
each one is
connected like that.
independent,
Correct.
Because I guess one is in DC and one
Yeah,
is
so-
Vegas, one is
Yeah, Fallout
you know,
3
so they're in
takes
different
place.
locations.
Fallout 3 takes place in the capital
Mm-hmm.
of the U.S. or around the capital, and it kind of ends, the crescendo, if you will, ends in the capital
Yeah.
wasteland.
Wasn't one in like Boston or something like that?
Now, I won't lie to you, I have not played 1 and 2 because
Okay.
1 and 2 are different games. They're like, the
They're-
view is like top down.
It's
Fallout
top,
3
yeah.
was a major deal because it was the first one in the franchise at the time that was first person,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then New Vegas, as you would imagine, is post-apocalyptic New Vegas, and it's huge. It's huge. It's arguably the better.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Are any, I'm gonna say main characters,
Mm.
are any of the main characters in the show in the video game, or
No.
are they all fake? Like they've
They're-
made
they're-
new people.
They're completely made up.
That's interesting, and it
But
works.
but that's exactly my point.
Because
Yes,
most
it
people
does
would be
work.
like, "This is not Fallout."
Yeah,
Where
because
is this
Fallout,
person? But
like-
like you said, it's different people, different areas. So who are you to say what doesn't work? This
Last
could
of
be
Us
some area
has
you
a
don't know
very
about.
set story, set beginning, set ending. These people are supposed to survive. These people are supposed to die. And if you deviate from that, you're going to piss people off. You're going to
And-
lose
and where's that
viewership.
character?
And where's
Like,
that
yeah,
character?
they're
Who the heck
pivotal
is
to
this that you just made up, fabricated? But Fallout kind of has the freedom to say, you know what? As long as we play by the rules of this universe, that everything's irradiated, that we have ghouls, that we have factions, people are crazy, they're going to kill you for what you
creatures
you're
and things like
mutated
that.
animals,
Like you said, the rad roaches.
right,
And,
the Brotherhood of Steel, the Republic of California.
Yeah.
You have all these factions that are straight out of the game. Okay, you're following the rules. You're changing a few little things, but overall, you're sticking to it. Good on you.
Because you can play different characters, I think this is why it works.
And you can be, and
like
this
you
is
said,
a-
it's not
yes,
set.
yes,
like
because in Fallout, you bring up a good point. Now, in
angles.
again, you have a straight narrative that you follow, a very
Right.
linear game that you follow in Last of Us. Whereas Fallout, you can be good, you can be bad, you can double cross people, you can talk to somebody and don't like how he talks to you and shoot him and take
yeah.
all his stuff. But oh no, he was a vendor. And it's just like, well, I don't have to buy anything from you anymore because I just killed you. But
Yeah.
just watch out because there's raiders that are looking at you to
Right.
do the exact same thing.
Right.
So it's and there's multiple endings, by the way, in Fallout games, depending on your choices.
exactly.
You know,
It's
and
kind
so
of like Fable in that way.
yeah. So the show is leaving it very open. What is it? The character Lucy, she's goody two shoes, and she has the golden rule. And you go out into this post-apocalyptic world, and you realize we don't play by any rules,
Right.
and we will kill you for what you have, and you're going to have to kill people for what they have if you're going to
Exactly.
want to survive.
Make
Do
that
not
ass
do
meat.
nice things for people. Do not give them your water. Do not give anybody anything unless you
jerky.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the
we're
rules of being homeless on the street.
Now,
Don't let anybody borrow your blanket.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
As we talked about in previous episode when we were talking about Rebel Moon, you know, you've got introductions of characters. Again, Lucy's probably the main character, but you do get introduced to other
Yes.
characters, such as Knight Titus and the main ghoul that was
They just call him the Ghoul.
Yeah,
But
he's-
he was
he used to be
Hollywood.
a Hollywood guy, actor, kind of like John Wayne. Like he did westerns and stuff, and he was a soldier previously that fought in the war, and then he became a movie star and all these.
Then he
other
became
things.
the poster child for Vaultec. When this was
Exactly,
going on, they
exactly.
decided, hey, here's a celebrity. We're going to get him to do our
Yeah.
commercials and
So
stuff like
they're
that. Yeah.
able in Fallout to jump back and forth in time back to before the nukes were dropped, and back to where he is now and how it influences his behavior and like his story and backstory of
Yeah.
what all happened with just the different driving part of the story. Like, ooh, where did this character come from? How do they tie together? Do they know each other? And so, I mean, with that, even Lucy's, gone on her own adventure of how she thought the way the world worked within the vaults, just to find out that it was very different from what she
Very.
thought. And again, that kind of has to do with, as you mentioned before, that different vaults were run by different companies.
Yeah.
They were all vault tech, but they were controlled by different factions or different other government, subsidiaries, companies, corporations, whatever. They were able to like go in and, what would be fun? Because they basically sat down and they said, well, we don't know what it's going to be like in these vaults. People are unpredictable. Your idea might be let's add these rules and restrictions, and that's going to be the best way for survival.
Yeah.
And Neff's idea of how people are going to react and in these vaults, he's going to put on these different rules and restrictions and on how the vault should be run.
They have, there's just the freedom, I think, of the
But I
story
think-
of the show is
yeah.
what makes it so
I think
good.
that the way that they, like you said, the way that they jumped around between the characters and the way that they still held with, what the rules were of the games. Like you said, they had the different factions. So, with like Knight Titus, he was the Brotherhood of Steel, and they do split off,
This,
which keeps the story interesting because
Yes.
it's not constantly Lucy. It's also, here's this other character, and then that character ends up interacting with Lucy later on.
they show
And the same thing with the ghoul. He has his story and what
Right.
he's doing, and then shows up later and has his interaction with Lucy.
Yeah, because you basically the story of the show follows three characters and it jumps between what they're doing, and as the show progresses, they converge together.
Correct.
And you start to see it's like okay, and that right there, even that concept is in line with the games, because in the games you meet all kinds of people, and some of them become your friends in the game, and they follow you, and they fight with you, and they will die for you, and they will carry weapons for you, and all that stuff. One thing I want to talk about though too is I brought up Avatar: The Last Airbender. That show, not the M. Night Shyamalan garbage. We won't talk about
The
that.
show, not the
show,
movie.
right? That did pretty well, despite the the creators of Avatar walking out due to creative differences with Netflix. But games or shows like Last of Us and Fallout, that the success of those two shows are what happens when you are working closely with the game studio, because I think that right there is why video game adaptations, be it a show or a movie, do so poorly, because people say, hey, can I make a movie based on your video game? Okay, I can, cool. And they're going to go off the rails and they're going to do their own thing. They might touch on the creator, the developer. Hey, what do you think? Do you think I can make the character like this? And some developers are like, yeah, sure, do your thing. Do what you do. And you can clearly tell when more care is given. And so, like, I don't know the development cycle of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know at what point did the creators walk away, you know? And it's important to note that even though they walked away, the show was still a fantastic success. Debatable, amongst fans of the series, myself included. Like, I was entertained by it. I felt like they shoehorned, they skipped a lot of stuff, they shuffled some stuff, but all in all, it was still it was an entertaining experience. In the case of Fallout and Last of Us, why these two series did so well is because the creative director of both of these games was working very closely with the directors. So Last of Us, you had Neil Druckmann, the creative director of Last of Us, who worked very closely with the director on the show. And he even said, hey, there's things that we didn't get to go deeper into in the game because we wanted to push this narrative forward for the gamer, but now we can expound upon, we can flesh that out in the show, talking
Yeah,
about
we can
Frank.
spend that time.
Yeah, there was an episode with Frank, and his partner, basically, that they talk about it, they allude to it in the game a little bit, but then we kind of move forward and we never see those characters, hear about them again. But then you have Fallout, where executive producer Todd Howard, he's been involved with every game, I want to say, since Fallout 3. I might be wrong on that one, but he's like
He's
both.
already familiar with
Well,
the
he's
games
basically
and
Neil Druckmann
knows
and Todd
what-
Howard are the Bible to these shows, to these games, and they know what would be and what would not be. They know what we could expound upon in a film format.
What'll make it fit within both realities.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is what carries these shows so well. Why they're doing so well is because you have the people that actually worked on the writing of the story. I think, and it just shows. That's all I can say. It shows. If they would have said, "Hey, Netflix, here, Amazon, do your own thing," I'm pretty certain they wouldn't have done well.
What do you guys think about the future of this storyline with Fallout? And then go into your expectations for season 2.
So we already know that season 2's been announced. Real quick, before I forget, I thought this was worth noting. The director behind the Fallout series, it's worked on between Todd Howard, the creative director of the game, and wait for it, Jonathan Nolan, younger brother of Christopher Nolan, worked on it. So they got some high profile people working on this. You got the guy that worked on the game supporting it, and you have Jonathan Nolan, brother of one of the most famous directors of our time right now in terms of like great storytelling. I mean, Christopher Nolan doesn't make garbage. He doesn't. His movies are generally pretty damn good. You know what I mean? So I'm not too familiar with Jonathan Nolan's stuff, but if this is a preview of what he can do, then I'm looking forward to seeing more Jonathan Nolan stuff. So that's just worth
Would you
pointing
like
out.
to see the same cast, Kage?
For season 2?
Or do you think they switch it?
I'm pretty invested. And with
Yeah.
how they ended the show,
They definitely can bring back the cast. It's not
Yeah.
not that to be 100% honest, the only person that I was kind of excited when I saw him and then sad when they killed him was the head. The actor, she's carrying around the head. And I've seen him in other TV shows. I generally think he's a good actor. And so I was kind of sad because I was like, they gave him his backstory and told him his importance in the show and everything. But then it was just over for him.
but that
And-
that right there, that's pure Fallout comedy.
Right,
You
right.
see somebody, they're dead, but they're not quite gone. They're still a part of the story
Yeah.
in a twisted,
way.
hokey sort of way. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, I would have enjoyed seeing more of that actor. Is what
Okay.
I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But obviously his role is done. He did his part.
Yeah.
There's no reason to bring him forward anymore, because he played his, he did what he
did it.
needed to
He
do.
played his part. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as the actor that plays the ghoul, he's got to come back. Like, as far as his character goes, like, I feel like he has to stay within the show and the series. Lucy and Titus, they kind of leave them, at the end, to where it's like, okay, I can see them coming back. As far as even the brother, the Lucy's
Yeah.
brother, because there's what's happening on the surface, and then there's what's happening in the vaults.
Yep.
And again, they jump around, but they do it in a way that keeps you invested in what's going on with those characters, even though you're jumping around. Again, we talked about Lucy being mostly, the story revolves around her and what's going on with her journey to find her father.
Yeah.
But at the end of the show, it opens up a wide world of possibilities of what they're going to do next. Are they going to then focus on, her particularly, or are they going to go in a different direction to where, just how all these other characters were introduced and they tied to Lucy, maybe they're going to introduce a new character and find a way to Lucy to tie to that
Yeah.
character. So they could go that route as well. And it would be, kind of interesting to do that, only in the sense that that's what the games did, is they always started with a new character and a new situation. So
That's why I figured I'd ask that.
yeah,
in particular.
so it would be interesting if they did that, if they found a way and they said, hey, here's a completely different area of the country, introduce a new character and find a way to tie those characters into the new character's storyline, to bring a different thing and be like, oh, hey, look, it's Goosey.
Yeah. There.
And yeah, her character's name is Lucy. It's just in the game.
Yeah,
Or, I mean, in the TV show. Sorry, in the TV
All I'm gonna
show
say is you guys gotta watch it. It's
Yeah.
even if you haven't played either of those games, Last of Us or Fallout, I highly recommend you go see it. I feel like the stories definitely stand on their own.
And you don't need to have played them.
You really don't need to
enjoy
play.
them.
You really don't need to play the game. I can't say that enough. This isn't something that would be ruined or lost on you for not playing the games. Like playing the games, you notice Easter eggs. You notice terminology. You notice that weapon on the background, or this in the background, or you hear what somebody says, and they don't expound upon it in the show, but you're like, I know what that is. It simply adds to it. It doesn't take away from it if you haven't played. It just adds to it. So I think you would. Neff, I think you'd have a pretty good time watching this.
Yeah, we definitely talked about it. Like I said, I've spoken about it on the weekly and talked to you guys about it. Just when I saw the trailer alone, I said, this looks like
The production
pretty
value-
high quality here.
It does-
Like
it
now,
is very high
could it take left field? It could, but based off just what I saw, I really like how Amazon and the creators presented that trailer, because to
Yeah.
me it looked like something that looked like they put some effort into it. So just off that, it had my interest. But like I said, I've heard nothing but good things about Fallout. So.
And I will say this about Fallout, because we've talked about it before, which is, yes, it's a comedy, but it is well balanced for the serious moments, for
Yes.
those battle scenes, for
Yes.
those truly, like, oh, something really dark is revealed or whatever. They don't just make light of it and gloss over it. They give the audience a moment to be like,
to
oh,
process.
man,
Yeah.
like that was a big thing, or that's terrible, or
It does it where it
with-
needs to.
exactly.
They'll spend
There's-
time on a dramatic scene for as much as they need to. I'm sorry, like Argyle, the main character discovers a plot twist. Her parents are not her parents, or they die, and it's just like, oh, and we're gonna cut to a comedic moment. It's like, wait, was I supposed to still process that? Like
Or Marvel stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Marvel stuff
Where
is-
it's never a serious moment. Even when it's a serious moment, someone has to crack a line. Like,
Yeah,
have to
like
make a-
like
oh,
Fallout is serious when it needs to be, and most of the time it's hokey, dark humor. Okay, if anything, stay for the hokey, dark
Yeah.
humor. It's just that good.
But again, as you mentioned, in the moments where it needs to be serious, they allow it to be serious. They
Yes.
give the audience
They don't just
time.
mow over it.
Yeah, they don't just throw in a quick one-liner. Now, I'm not saying they do it every time, but there are certain scenes where you're like, oh man, this is getting really dark and depressing. They're harvesting organs, and the robot's like, oh, just hold still. This will only hurt a lot. You know?
Yeah. And something to note too is that due to the success of this show, it's brought the Fallout franchise. It's given it a resurgence.
Correct.
Because now gamers are going out and buying. There was a report on Steam
Oh, yeah.
alone that they said they've seen
Re-downloading.
an increase of purchases, not just on Steam but Xbox, PlayStation, across the board.
Yeah.
People were like, oh,
My boyfriend definitely did. He
yeah,
went
I did too. I did
re-downloaded.
too.
Yeah.
I did too, because like it just speaks
I
to
wanna
the
go back and play the
power.
game again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be in that universe. I want to be screwed up and hack people's heads off and take everything they've got because I need bottle caps. Damn it! But
You
like
could call
and dog meat is the goodest of boys. But like yeah, this show has done so well that people are going back and playing Fallout. I mean, my God, Fallout 3 came out in 2008. Fallout 4 came out. I don't know, like 2015, 2014, something like
Yeah,
ballpark.
it's been a
It's
minute.
been a minute, but
Yeah.
like people are going back and play these games, and the rumor that's going on around the gaming community right now is that this show,
They did a great job.
it's marketing. It's marketing, because the rumor is there is a Fallout game in the works, and Bethesda, who makes Fallout, wants to keep this in people's minds. And so we're gonna go, you
There'll
know
be a
what?
lot of hype around the
Right,
new
right. We don't
release.
have a game. We have the show. If we put this show out, this will keep Fallout in people's minds. Oh no, we made the show. It's getting people playing the games from 10 plus years ago. Okay, we
Even-
got them. We got them.
Just like with Avatar, as soon
Yes,
as they
yes.
announced.
We're building up
Yeah.
hype, and now we're building up. Now that we've got people's attention, now we're
Very
gonna
similar to what you said about Silent Hill.
Exactly. Not no pun intended, but we're dropping the bomb here. We're gonna go. Okay, now we finally have a game out, and it's still for it. It's going to help with
if
sales.
it gets big enough, you'll see a Fallout movie.
Whoa.
If it gets big enough.
Whoa.
Now,
I don't
will
know
that
if they-
format work? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well-
what do you guys think about the 8-episode format? This is gonna be the last question. 8-episode format, and for season 2, would you like to see an expansion, or do you think 8 episodes does what it needs to do? It's not too short. It's not too long. Very concise, to the point. Good show.
So here's the thing that I will say about the 8-episode format. You know, growing up, TV shows, they had anywhere from 12 to 23, 24 episodes or more. Stretched out throughout the year. They usually took like a break, you know,
Yeah.
around Christmas time and summer. But a lot of content. And you could say that with a lot of these shows, because some of them were high production value, some of them were low production value, and that's why they were able to throw so much content out there. That being said, as shows continued on in popularity, budgets obviously went up. Actors got paid more in order to keep the original cast members in these shows. And so then you have situations like with Friends where they were getting paid $1 million an episode.
Yeah.
You know, because they were like, audience members want to see their cast members, you know, that they've grown attached to over the years in these roles. And these were 30-minute, hour-long episodes, whatever the case may be. That being said, with this 8-episode format, it definitely leaves you wanting more for the majority of the shows that I've watched in that format. The thing that annoys me about it is when I'm used to a series or a show, you know, TV shows lasting 20 episodes or so, 8 episodes feels like I got robbed. Now I gotta wait a year and a half for
Yeah.
another 8 episodes. Like, it feels like
It's a
that's
double-edged
way too
sword.
much. It feels like it's way too much time in between.
Yeah.
Now, that being the argument of well, it's a higher production value, so it takes more time to, fully flesh out and, film and edit and add in special effects and things like that, to write the story to give you a good quality product. I'm like, look at Supernatural. That was nobody complained about the quality of product that they were getting. 20 plus episodes a season, 20 seasons long. Like, who's sitting there going, I feel robbed?
Yeah.
Certainly not the audience members. Now, there was episodes, just like in any TV series, where you're like, there's a lot of filler. Even whether it was a 30-minute episode or an hour-long episode. I'm talking about Naruto explicitly, where I'm like, I really only got like 15 minutes of new content, and the other, 15 minutes was recapping.
Yeah.
And there was so many seasons where you're just like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
Could you just cut it down to the most prudent stuff and shorten it, like you said, to an 8-episode thing of where it's just all the new content and the pertinent information, so I don't feel like I have to watch 90 hours of 15-minute intervals of interesting information. So I mean, that argument could be made as far as shortening it into the 8 episodes. You're getting what you need, and that's good. Versus stretching it out over 20 episodes of a bunch of filler in between.
What do you think, Kage?
Yeah, so I think that the 8-episode format was pretty good. None of the episodes felt rushed. The pacing was very good. Every episode was like an hour-ish long, and I was like, I have to know more. And I absolutely did binge this because it was just that good. That being said, when you finish a series and you want to know more, that tells you that this was a good show. If it was a one and done, I'm like, I've gotten my fill, I don't need to know more, then it might have been a good show. But if it's really good, you're like, I have to know what happens next. I need to know where these characters are going. I'm not going to spoil the ending of Fallout show, but all gamers were paying attention. I'll just say that much. And we like, ooh, we know where we're going next.
Yeah.
We know where we're going next. And I want to see where Knight Titus, Maximus, as he's called, and Lucy and the ghoul, I want to see, okay, we spent the 8 episodes telling each of their stories, and it all converges together. Okay, now I want to see where they go. This is a dark comedy show, so I'm interested to see how the ghoul, who is very much familiar with the ways of the wasteland, and how he deals with these two people, this goody two-shoes, fresh out of the vault Lucy, and very regimented Brotherhood of Steel Maximus. I'm interested to see their character dynamic, how they go together. So I'm very interested to see how
But
they do.
Let me ask you this, because we bring up a good point, which is that after the 8 episodes, you were like, it feels good, and all that. And then I'm just going to throw a comparison with Stranger Things. Everybody loves Stranger Things. They were ready for another season. Now, in order to keep this fresh in people's mind, we've always talked about like how much time do you stretch in between seasons.
Yeah.
Now, right now, you're like, let's go. I'm ready for another season. Let's do it. If they told you they're not going to have another season for 3 years, what would you say then? Was it enough? Was 8 episodes enough? Or would you have preferred if they were going to have
question.
a huge gap in there?
That's a
20
fantastic
episodes?
question. So I definitely, like a bit ago, I said it's a double-edged sword. If you make your show good enough, on one hand, you're going to want audiences wanting more. On the other hand, they're going to be wanting so much more that they want it now. And now you've kind of put yourself in a box in a sense, because you're like, okay, we made it so good, people like it. Now we gotta get this out, but we don't want to rush it. We don't want to rush it because that's going to hurt the overall quality. So we have to do a balance of, okay, we need to do it to keep it in people's minds, but we don't want to do it so fast that we're rushing it. We want to capture the same magic that we did. We need lightning in a bottle. We got to do this again. Last of Us got approved for a second season, so they're doing it. Let's hope that they get the format. I think that was like 10 episodes. I feel like if they do a second season, if they already got approved for a second season, I would like them to stick to that format, keep it to an hour-ish episodes. They can probably do more episodes. I don't want to say like 20, like something absurd. If it was like 10, maybe 15 tops episodes, I would be okay with that. But it all comes down to quality because again,
Yeah.
if you sit there and you make season 2 20 episodes, 30 episodes, it's like okay, now you're kind of like it's I like what you're selling, but I feel like you can kind of hurt the overall quality if you do that. That's just my opinion.
And let me, because you touched on this earlier, they released the whole season at once.
Yeah.
Do you think now that they've seen the success of the show that in season 2, when they release it, that they're gonna do it weekly episodes? Or do you think that they should keep it, I mean, obviously, we would all hope, because most of us, like you said, like to binge these shows, and nobody really likes to, see an episode, be
Wait a
left
week
on
till
a
next Sunday,
cliffhanger.
yeah.
Yeah, left on a cliffhanger and go, oh yeah, now I need to know, but I have to wait a whole week, because obviously watching TV shows back in the day, that's what you had to do. They often would be like, oh, to be continued kind of thing at the end of the episode, and you're like, no, I just want to know what happened. Did he die? Did he not die? He got shot.
Sure.
Like what?
You're
He's
invested.
bleeding out.
Yeah.
Did he live? Tune in next week to find out.
Yeah, I really feel like I could, in terms of how they do it, I feel like I can go either way. Like with the show being so good, I will absolutely wait until next week. I mean, okay, here's an example. Walking Dead. I love The Walking Dead. I watched it every Sunday with my mom. And it was so good, and I was invested, and me and my friends would talk about it all week, and we would await the episode on the following.
You're gonna watch
the
it?
following,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't forget, it's on at 8.
Yeah. Like there's that hype. So if you break it all up, people are going to talk about it. People are going to hype about it all week. But if they decide, hey, we're going to dump all the season in one go, I would love that because I would be able to binge it and I would still talk about it just like I would with my friends. Hey, have you seen it? Have you seen this episode? Where are you at? It starts discussion, and that is the
Yeah.
signs of just a good solid show. You know what I mean?
And I will say, I have noticed with the streaming services, other than the new weekly releases of episodes, they've started, like Netflix especially, has started breaking them into pieces, where they release like the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, you're right.
And then a couple months later, they release the
Have a
second half.
mid-season.
Well, they when it comes to
But it's
Stop it, and
still,
then
but
bring
it's
it back.
still only the 8 or 10 episode
Right.
format.
They did with
What
Ozark.
I think because it's a video game adaptation, and video game adaptations have kind of a bad rap. It's getting better over the years, but they want to do a small season. Let's just see how this does. Let's see how people like it. And because Fallout Season 1 was such a success, they're gonna go, okay, they like this. We can do more. We can do a Season 2. We can do more episodes. People are gonna watch us. We clearly see that they are, and it's such a hype that people are going back and playing the 10-plus-year-old games. We did something right. We have something. So we're gonna. I think they know what they're doing.
Take us out, Kage.
All right, but that is our wrap up of Fallout. So guys, please tell us: have you seen the series? Have you played the games? What do you think? I highly recommend you go and check it out, whether you're a gamer or not. There's something there.
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, guys. That's where it's at. And of course, if you haven't seen Last of Us, I highly recommend you go and check that out.
Sure.
But yeah, just let us know in the comments. What do you think? Have you seen these shows? Have you played these games? What do you think? What's going on, guys? But I'm your host, Kage, with
Neff.
And Buttons.
and we will see you next time. Be safe, guys.